and today's guest, Isabeau Maxwell, has a story that will leave you awestruck. In 2005, at 32, she transitioned from a skeptic to a psychic medium in a life-altering moment when her deceased grandmother appeared in her living room. This encounter shattered her scientific mindset, propelling her into a realm of spiritual exploration. Now, Isabeau, or Boo, shares her journey of transformation, offering profound insights into unlocking one's psychic potential. As the founder of the Sage Method, author of Cracking Open, and creator of the Sage Circle, she guides individuals worldwide on embracing their intuitive abilities. Get ready for a captivating episode. And if you know me, I love to talk to people about their spiritual awakenings and how they got where they are today. So let's bring her on. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
I am so excited that you're here today. Again, I love hearing spiritual inspirations, your life story, where you are today, because to me it's so interesting, my dear, that you were so logical,
Ugh,
mathematic and chemistry, just the
oh yeah.
opposite of being that creative and tuned. So tell us from the very beginning how this all started for you. I mean, what did, your spirit team have in store for you?
It's ironic but so wonderful. I mean, you're looking at a professional intuitive. I now teach people how to open up their intuition all over the globe. I'm just living like my best life now, but I am type A Taurus. I was a complete skeptic. And like you said, mathematics and science. I have a math degree from college.
Right.
That was my whole road. So I was 32 years old. I never dove into spirituality, never dove into religion, had no interest
Mhm,
for it. One plus one had to equal two. And that was all there
mhm,
was to it. I needed to see it to believe it. And I was 32. My grandmother passed away. I was in New Hampshire. She was in Minnesota. And I had been there earlier when she was in hospice, but I wasn't able to afford to be there at the moment that she passed. My aunt brought me into the room via phone. She passed away. I remember coming back out of my bedroom and my family said, we're going to run to the store and get, wine and chocolate. I was like, thank you.
yeah.
And I was very, very close to her. She was very maternal for me. And I was standing in my living room, middle of the day, not sure if I was going to, should I get an airline ticket or should I fall apart? I was really debating because everything, was so structured for me back then. And
Right.
she showed up in my living room right in front of me. I still stumble through it. Right in front of me.
Mhm,
She was
mhm.
about 70% solid. And I remember she was standing sideways and she turned and she kind of winked at me and like smiled and then disappeared. This was not, it is my favorite moment, but it was not my favorite moment, if that makes sense. I was absolutely shook, completely scared. Um, I remember kind of flying back and being like, all right, no, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. And
Yeah.
then I remember grief taking over and fighting with the logical side of me that said that was a hallucination. That was grief. That was your mind creating it because you're so devastated. And then there was another side of me that said, yeah, but what if? What if? And the kid in me wanted it so bad that I was like, okay, I'm going to just scientifically explore this, which is hysterical when you think about the spiritual world, right? There's no
Right.
scientific really kind of exploration that's solid there, proof based, but I did. I did. And I teeter tottered the next morning. I remember my husband said, I had this dream, very realistic about your grandmother, and this is what she was wearing. And I remember being a little freaked out because he described what she was wearing when I saw her the night before, and I hadn't told him. I That was not something that I shared. So I found somebody who was the most spiritual person I could find, who clearly loved me unconditionally for all my, you know, attitude self back then. And I remember walking up to him and saying, "You're the weirdest person I know. Can you help me?" And
Right.
he just loved me. He just loved me. He
Oh,
was like, "Yes, my dear, I can help you." So it's like he saw in me what I hadn't seen in myself yet. And so he supported me with yes and no questions. I worked hard to set the bar for proof. When she gave me proof, the proof was so strong, I couldn't deny it anymore. And
right.
I said, "All right, I have to step into this and see where it goes." And now here I am.
I love that story because what a gift that your grandmother gave to you. You know, she knew that you were needing what, it was the timing of it all.
Mhm.
It seemed like it was very planned out and that she was your biggest advocate to start
Mhm.
this. And of course, she wouldn't take no for an answer. And I think it's so
Correct.
interesting that, yeah, that spirit
Mhm.
also put people in your life. So my question is, now, did your grandmother, did she ever talk about having psychic abilities or spirituality or anything as you grew up?
So that's a great question. It was a really interesting dynamic. I now fully am on board with if you raise a child open to these possibilities, they won't shut down their intuition. We're all intuitive. We all have 100% strong intuition. It's a matter of how much we clutter that and shut that down. And so when it comes to, is it hereditary or is it nature and nurture? It's environment. It really is. It's saying, okay, you can be your authentic self in all of yourself, all six of your senses instead of five. But the dynamics of my family were really interesting, and I didn't find out about them until after my grandmother passed and after I was feeling like I was losing my mind. I remember
Right.
talking to my cousin, and she was like, "Oh, hun, yep, yep." And I'm like, "What do you mean, yep, yep?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, it's the whole family." How is the whole family intuitive? And I have no idea. Well, so my mom had really kind of put a door between that, myself and that in the
Mm,
family, and had made it really clear to the family, "Mm-mm, nope, this is not a part of my daughter's
right.
life." And it's not that they were like doing a lot, but when I finally started to ask questions about it, psychic visions, visits, this was all a very commonplace. Now that
Mhm.
I know my family better on that level without that blockage from my mom, now that I know my family on a better level, it's great. When my cousin calls me and said she had a dream, I listen because those dreams are prophetic and they mean something and I should follow them. So but
Yeah.
it is interesting. I was really shielded from it.
And the connections were all there. But you do such a good job talking about your experience, your spiritual awakening, everything in your book, Cracking Open. And I absolutely love that. So if somebody is starting their spirituality and all this is happening and they're going, I don't know if I should say yes, no, what advice would you give to them?
What advice? Well, the book is helpful because when I wrote the book, it was I decided I'm writing this book very real. There's
Mhm.
no specialty factor about me. There's if I am literally the poster child, if I can do this, it proves that everyone can because you don't get more stubborn than me. So uh, the book is really helpful because the book is not watching a gifted special person. The book is about what happens for a very real person who's just like everyone else when all of this unfolds. And what I love about the book is that people read it and then they come back and they go, I felt the same way so many times when I read the
Yes.
book. I related,
Yes.
and I'm like, that's what I needed. Is I needed people to
Mhm.
see that you can relate. There are other people out there that that do this, and it's really important for me for people to know that. And then I just sort of journeyed down that road right now and completely lost track of what you just asked of me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, 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 no. No, like you said, the book will help. And I think you pretty much answered it because I asked, what advice would you give to somebody that is going into this? And to
Mhm.
me, you answered it. You know that you're not alone and you need to find people that have gone through it and can help you through it. Because I don't know how many times in the book you were, like you said, stubborn. You go, "Oh, no, no, I can't do this." And then all the information while you're reading somebody came too, and you're going, "Oh, hell, this is working out so well."
You're like, "Wait, did that really happen? That really happened? Did that really happen? It really did." It's like, "No way." I can't tell you how many, like, you can't make this stuff up moments, right?
Right.
For me, the way that
Absolutely.
I explain intuition in general to people, there's 2 things that I love verbalizing so people go, "Ooh, okay." The
Yeah,
first one is that intuition is like taste buds. If we grew up in a society where we were told no one can taste anything, that's not real. That's made up. That's fake. If a society had
right.
developed, and I'm saying this very specifically, if society had developed in such a way to poo-poo, shun, and, mystify taste buds, what happens to the kid that can taste something? Well, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't, until it's just shut down. And
Right.
I'm kind of here going, no, 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 heads up, everyone. We can taste things.
Mhm.
It really is a
Right.
thing. And the other piece is a lot of times I love to share the concept of defocus with people because it's a free concept. You can play around with it on your own. If you do anything to start tapping in, this is a great thing to do. Everything that we're looking for intuitively, your sixth sense, your intuitive channel is looking at the spaces in between the solid. So when our eyes are physically landing on something, we're not seeing anything intuitively. So I tell people, like, when you see something out of the corner of your eye and it's really clear, but then you turn to look and you can't see it, here's the reason: because the corner of your eye is defocused. It's not
Mm.
focused on the material world. And when you turn, you're looking at a door, a wall, a table, a chair. You're looking at material objects, and everything that we're trying to access, loved ones, source, information, guides, et cetera, is not in the solid. So any form of defocusing, scrying, candles, closing your eyes, allowing your gaze to fade off, play around with that. See where it takes you.
And and I totally agree that we need to experience, experiment, and decide what works for us because everybody is so different. I mean, what
Yes.
you experience will be different than what I experience. My grandmother, I love her. We were close, everything. She didn't really come. I'm going, well, where are you? But
You.
I love that your grandmother, I mean, again, that was such a gift. And you just never know how it's going to open because your spirit team is so different. Talking about your spirit team, I love reading about Big Dog.
He's a dude. Yep.
So how did he make himself present? How did you know? How did, because a lot of people always say, well, how do you know it's a guide whenever you connect in? So how did
Yeah.
Big Dog kind of show himself?
Well, it's kind of ironic, and I look back now and I'm like, "Wow, you could not get more of a newbie than I was." I was so outside of the spiritual realms that I didn't even know what spirit guides were. That's how much that wasn't even in my path. And so when I realized it was my grandmother, I was like, Scooby Doo and score. This is awesome. I have a direct line. I can just, for the rest of my life, I've never lost her. And I thought, this is
Right.
it. That's all I want. And then I started seeing more spirits. And I was like, no, 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 didn't sign up for this. This is not the part that, but, I gradually relaxed into it. There was an area of woods next to an associate's house, and I would go to this associate slash friend's house, and my kids knew their kids, that kind of thing. And I was leaving that house, and I was absolutely pulled to the wood. I was just obsessed with this empty space in the woods, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I remember seeing what looked like a heat signature. You see like heat raising off of the ground, and it's like translucent, but it moves a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing that out
Right.
there and going, what is that? What is that? Right. And then I kept getting pulled back to it. And it was Big Dog. He was out there. Turns out there was this one area in the woods that had these perfect alignment of trees in a circle about 10 feet across. And I didn't realize that at first either, because city girl stumbling out into the woods going, ooh,
Right.
and a bear's going to get me. And you're like 20 feet from the house, and everyone's probably like, okay, you're fine. But I went out there and I started to communicate with this thing. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I feel really good and I feel really safe. And it took me a long time. It did. It took weeks and weeks and weeks to get open communication. And then this is how much of a newbie I was. That was Big Dog. We finally came into form and I started to learn a little bit more about who he was. He was the one that said, you have spirit guides. And I remember being like, that's great. I can't wait to meet them. And he just looked at me with that blank stare like, you're looking right at one, hun. And I was like, okay. So he was my first guide. He was actually what I would consider a teaching guide. And I studied with him for a couple of years. Actually, I would go out to that section of the woods continually for a very long time, all these journals, everything else. And then I started to work professionally, started doing professional clearings as well. And a couple years after, like a year or two after that, he said, I need you to take everything that I taught you and put it together and put it into and bring it out into the world. And that was the birth of the Sage Method. So the Sage Method course is a 7-week intuitive development course that's where it came from.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's what we're going to talk about next. So I think that
Good
is
segue.
so he's the one that gave you gave you the inspiration to start the Sage Method. So can you tell everybody what it contains, what you will learn if they contact you to take this course?
It's like I said, it's 7 weeks. And it's going to go over, there's a lot in it. Obviously, if I took 2 years of training and broke it down into 7 weeks, there's a lot in it. People can take it at their own pace, though. This is not something that you have to get all done in 7 weeks. And I've had students for years now. Students will take it every couple of years. They'll like refresh and go back in every couple of years to take it again. It goes a lot deeper than intuition. It not only does it talk about how intuition works and giving you an understanding about how this whole system works that we are in, soul groups, past lives, intuitive channels, how the sixth sense works with the five senses. Like it gives you all of that like understanding, which is important to a lot of people. Tell me how it works. But it's also going to show you directly, step by step, what's actually blocking your intuition. So the Sage Method doesn't approach intuition as something that you gain or you get. It approaches it much differently, which is it's something that you uncover, and here's how you uncover it. And it was great because when he said that, I grabbed a bunch of my clients and said, hey, do you want to get, because I hadn't taught anything at that point. Turns out I really love teaching, but I said, do you want to try this? And I got them together as guinea pigs. And we went through the 7 weeks together. And I got to sit there and watch what they were able to do intuitively at the end of it. I was like, no way. I thought it was just me. It's not just me. And I got really excited about it. And I've been teaching the Sage Method since 2008, about 2008. Yeah.
Wow. Now what does SAGE stand for?
Spirituality, alignment, growth, and empowerment. So you not only leave the course with, you not only leave the course with knowing how your unique intuition flows for you, because you're right, it's different for every single person. You not only leave the course with that, but this fabulous side effect happens that a lot of students come around and send me messages going, well, I didn't expect that, but thank you. Your life improves. I mean, your life improves because you do go inward, you do look at things, you do align things, you do find deeper connections with the people in your life. And that's all part of uncovering it. So it's a win-win-win.
Do you ever have anyone that's afraid to get into it? You know,
Yes.
they wanna get started, but they're afraid. So, and I can
Yes.
see where this technique would really help them. So so what do you say to them if, they're afraid to even get started?
Well, I there was a point where I remember saying to myself, if you're trying to help people not be afraid of this, you probably shouldn't talk about this the moment with your grandmother, right? Like, cuz it was a it was like I
Oh,
had a fearful moment,
yeah.
now come join me, you know? It's
Mhm.
but what
Right.
I will tell you is that I've taught, to put it in perspective, I've taught tens of
Mhm.
thousands globally, different walks of life, different religious, spiritual paths, all of it, because the sage method doesn't align with one particular, like, follow this path type thing.
Mhm.
The sage method is a human course, not any sort of religious course. But I've worked
Uh-huh.
with
Right.
that many people. I have never had someone open up and have something happen that they could not handle.
Mm.
And I've asked this of my guides, they've said it to me, but for me, proof is in witnessing other people go through this as well and saying, okay, that was strong and it happened.
Mhm.
Or how are you? And the response is always, I'm better than I thought I would have been. And
Right.
I'm much more open to this than I thought I probably would have been before. But there is some fear. I mean, when I first saw more spirits other than my grandmother, it was in a grocery
Mhm.
store. And it was so impactful, I put it in the book. And I remember turning, there was a couple living people, and you don't even recognize that, right? Because we're just in a grocery
Right.
store. But I remember turning, and all of a sudden I could see a couple more people that were translucent, and it was and transparent. And I'm like, "Ah," and I ran out of the grocery store. I ran out of the grocery store, and I got in my
Right.
car and sat down, and my grandmother was in the passenger seat. And I remember saying, "What the heck?" And she's like, "Well, what did you expect?" And I was like, "Okay, got it. Got it." A really great therapist said to me, because I also was going to therapy at the time that I opened up with this, and this really amazing therapist said, when we have fear, it's because we haven't built a context around what we're experiencing. So if you go through your entire life never
Mm.
seeing grass or the leaves on trees, and you wake up one morning and go out and see that, it will frighten you at first until you realize it's just grass and trees.
Oh, I love that. And that is so true because and then you start
Yeah.
embracing it once you get through that
Yeah.
fear. That is what, and I
Yep.
love that you said that you love being a teacher because I found your YouTube. And I absolutely love it because you are so comfortable in front of the camera. You're so comfortable teaching. I just absolutely love it. The one video that I really fell in love with too is whenever you went to the Sally house and you talked
Yes.
about the experience. And I know this is one thing that Big Dog, I believe, taught you to do the clearings. And
Hmm.
can you go ahead and I'll ask questions along the way, but kind of talk about the experience that you had at the Sally house about the clearing and what you learned about it.
Yes. Well, the Sally House was a really great experience. Now, not only I would say probably about 98% of the people that take the Sage Method course do so for their personal life only. But there's a very small percentage of people that will take the course and then work with me one-on-one for another year of training after to become professional intuitives. Very small percent, but I do have certified Sage practitioners now. And three of them were going to go to the Sally house, all of which had never gone to a haunted location to clear it before. And they reached out to me and said, "Hey, Bo, you want to go?" And I was like, "Yep." So I put like my mama bear energy on, right? And went
Mhm.
there because
Right.
I've been in really intense properties, really dark, really, really quote haunted is what pop culture likes to say. I know, but and so it was helpful for me to be there to support them. So I
Mhm.
was there as a support structure type person. Uh, but I mean, even as that, I still had new experiences there. I remember, so the Sally House is a haunted location in Atchison, Kansas, and it's one of those that you pay to play. right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm not a fan of pay to play haunted locations when the living people specifically try to contain the spirits in the house and not let them go for the sake of the haunted experience. I am a fan of pay to play haunted houses when the living owners allow spiritual activity to come and go, meaning spirits, ghosts are people too. And many times when a living person, has one of these properties that is haunted, and they sell tickets to it, and they hold the spirits there to make sure that the living people have an experience, it's hard because that living person is like Margaret, right? And she just wants to cross over. So so I typically go to these places to just shift the boundaries, shift the walls, not to de-haunt the location, but even more so to open it up to other potential spirits that might want to come in and play with the people that are paying to play. And I get it. It's an experience, but Sally's house is one of them. And so many living people have been in and out of that property, signed up to have the kind of spooky experience. And a lot of them I bet did, because wow, was that place haunted. I remember getting there at 4 p.m, middle of the day, and saying to the practitioners, "You picked a doozy. Wow, ladies, this is not a small one to start with," because we walked in and it was like soup. It just, think of depression, anxiety, fear, terror, anger, rage into the form of a thick stew, and then walk into
Mhm.
it. That's what it felt like. And I was like, wow, we really bit off a big one here. This was good. So we were there. I remember at one point when I got to the top of I walked up the stairs first, and I literally had a spirit push the back of my knees, and I buckled and like went down at the top of the stairs. I remember thinking, well, that's a first. I've never had that happen. Been plenty of places, but I've never had anyone push me, right?
Right. Right.
And then I remember going down into the basement of the property. And after we got
Mm.
over the spooky fun part of who's going down first,
Right.
because there's the human piece of it as well. We got down there and there was a
Yeah.
chalkboard and there was some names on it. And the top name on the chalkboard was Beau, Beau. And I was like, oh, that's my
Ooh.
name. Okay. I'm like, did the owners of the house know my like the names of all of us? And Bonnie,
Right.
who was leading the charge, was like, I don't think so. It's like awesome. But it that one did get cleared. And like I said, it's not, the purpose is not to clear these places because people having experiences are just as important, but the purpose is to let spirits go that don't necessarily want to be there.
And I love watching programs about, the team coming in with electric equipment trying to prove something,
Yeah.
but I had never thought about a spirit being trapped there due to the humans wanting to make money off the deal. And
Yes.
so, I appreciate you bringing that to light because I thought, oh my gosh, how awful is that? To keep somebody where they want to leave, just so that they can
Yeah,
make
I
money.
I definitely I the first time I experienced one was 2011. It was an asylum, an old asylum in New York City, and my main guide, not Big Dog, but I have another guy named Peter, and he's really focused in on the
Mhm.
crossing over work. Peter was the one that showed up and just one day and said, "Hey, there's this asylum in New York. I need you to find it and go and clear it." And that was when I learned that this was the practice. We went down there, and the very first introduction, they were giving us a tour, and the owner was point blank saying, "We have a medium on staff whose job it is to contain the spirits and not let them go." And
Oh, right.
that just railed
Mhm.
right under my skin. And that's where I coined the term the human zoo, in
Right.
spirituality, the human zoo.
Mhm.
They decorate rooms to try to keep them happy. There's a kids' room with Christmas decorations and stuff. I'm like, so you're keeping children here and decorating a room and then holding them here. That's not cool in any way, shape, or form. Um, but I think that this is a pop culture issue and not the owner's necessarily issue. I have yet
Right.
to run into an owner that has put two and two together that that's a
Uh,
person. So
Right.
I have yet to run into somebody that is just not cool. If they were, I would do everything in my power to shut that place down. So I've never run
Right.
into one that their intentions were bad. It's
Right.
just our society has dehumanized spirits, turned them into these
Mhm.
things called ghosts. And so we don't connect that that's like Uncle Rob and he was a nice guy. And dude, just let him go home.
Right. Well, I appreciate you bringing it up because the more you talk about it, the more people will be educated in that area.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
going to kind of change things. So,
Okay.
if somebody came to you and they said, you know what, Bo, I need some inspiration for the week, kind of like what you were talking about, that room being, really depressed, that house being depressed, and just that energy level. So, what would you tell them to kind of bring up the energy and inspire them?
Gratitude is ridiculously powerful, and I'm not gonna throw out like be grateful. It's use gratitude as a personal, like internal weapon against your down thoughts. In our brain, I mean, we've got the chemicals, and sometimes we're low, tired, exhausted. Gratitude, if you did 30 seconds of thinking about something that you are grateful for, just 30 seconds of it can reset and combat so much of that heaviness within us. That combined with the knowledge that you're a spirit having a human experience, shifting that perspective into being out of being stuck in the human experience, and instead you're a spirit having a human experience. Know the power of your intentions and thoughts and play around with that. See how it affects the balance. It's not going to solve everything right out of the gate, but it's definitely going to give you a leg up.
I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Are you ready for the last question?
Yes.
All right. Let's spin it. Let's see what you're going to be asking. I mean,
Okay.
answering. The wheel's going to be asking, I guess you could say. Oh, oh, okay. I love it. I love it. Okay. So if you
Okay.
had to meet somebody, somebody that you have not met yet, and it could be somebody who is living, who is not living, that you want to meet, and why?
Okay. I'm laughing a little bit because the members in my spiritual community and stuff are all like, "Oh, we know this answer." It would be Prince.
Oh,
It would be Prince.
yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, and I
Yeah.
grew up in Minneapolis. I grew up deeply connected into his creative nature and vibe. So not the pop culture Prince. I don't want to
Right.
hear 1999 on the other side. Like that's not it. But I want to get us. I would ask him if he could explain who he really is on a soul level, because I would be fascinated to
Right.
know that.
Yeah, I
So
agree. I
I
think he
think I
was
think
very,
he's
very deep. Yeah.
oh yeah,
I'm sorry.
very deep. I feel like he touched
Yeah.
levels of creativity that other people haven't even been able to access. And that's who I would want to meet.
I love it. And I agree. I agree. I think he was a genius at what he did, and how much music he has actually come out with that we have not heard yet, of the songs. All right. So, but where can everybody reach you?
We do a really great job at keeping everything at our website, at our main website.
Okay.
It's thesagemethod.com. So THESAGE method.com. And there's a free course there. There's the connections to the YouTube channel. Like all that kind of stuff is pretty much it's like a hub. It's a great place to start.
Okay. And thank you so much for, I mean, all of your spiritual wise words that were here to tell us. And so I appreciate you spending your time with us. All right. But I do want to say one more phrase that I read from your book, and it's from Big Dog. I love that name that he gave you. And I just thought it was so important for everybody to know. You don't need to know what your path is. You just have to walk it Why would you focus on what is going to happen in 5 years from now? So concentrate on the present and really just embrace where you are. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this, and I will see you next week for another Inspiration Hour.